Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Deep Dive.
It's great to be back.
I'm Alex.
And I'm Maya.
And today we're going to take a deep dive into a topic I think we can all relate to.
Yeah.
How to avoid heated arguments.
Because let's face it, arguments are a part of life.
They are.
But what if we could learn to navigate them more effectively?
Yeah.
Maybe even prevent some altogether.
Exactly. And we've got some great material to help us with this.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to be looking at some research from bannerhealthandmedia.com.
Yes.
And a folktale as well.
I love that we're bringing in a folktale that adds a whole other dimension to this exploration.
So
yeah.
Let's jump right in.
Okay.
One thing that really stood out to me from the Banner Health article was the importance of recognizing when a conversation is starting to get heated.
Uh-huh.
It's like noticing those subtle signs before a storm.
Yeah, that's such a good analogy.
Right.
It's so easy to miss those early warning signs when you're caught up in the emotions of the moment.
Totally.
Right.
So what should we be looking for?
Well, Banner Health actually gives a whole list of physical and communication cues that can signal that trouble is ahead.
Okay.
Things like clenched fists,
Oh, yeah.
tightened jaw,
Sure.
or even a change in someone's breathing.
Like our body is betraying us.
Yes.
It's giving us away even if we're trying to stay calm.
Exactly. And these physical cues often go hand in hand with changes in communication patterns.
Like what?
Well, like an increase in use statements, blaming language,
Yeah.
interrupting each other more frequently.
Oh, yeah. I've definitely been guilty of that.
Oh, yeah.
Interrupting.
Right.
When I'm frustrated.
That's so common.
Or I feel like I'm not being heard.
We've all been there.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's why self-awareness is so crucial in these situations.
Right.
It's about taking a step back.
Yeah.
Noticing those subtle shifts in ourselves and others before things really escalate.
Now, I'm curious to hear from our listeners.
Oh, me too.
What are some of the signs that you've noticed in yourself or others when a conversation starts to get heated?
Yeah.
Share your experiences in the comments below.
We'd love to hear them.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see what you've observed.
Okay, so once we've turned into those early warning signs, the next step is knowing how to cool things down.
Right.
Before they reach a boiling point.
So what kind of strategies do our sources offer for de-escalating a heated argument?
Banner Health lays out a really helpful 4-step process.
Okay.
And I love it because it focuses on these simple, yet really powerful techniques that anyone can use.
Okay, break it down for us. What's the first step?
The first step is all about regulating your own emotions.
Okay.
And Banner Health specifically recommends taking deep breaths. And, you know, it might sound almost too simple, but there's a real science behind it.
All ears, tell me about the science.
Okay, so when we're stressed or angry, our sympathetic nervous system kicks in. It triggers that fight or flight response. Our heart rate goes up, our breathing gets shallow, and we're primed for action.
Yeah.
But deep intentional breathing can actually activate the parasympathetic nervous system, which is responsible for calming us down.
So it's like hitting the brakes.
Yes.
On that runaway train of emotions.
Exactly. And it only takes a few deep breaths to start shifting your internal state.
Wow.
So next time you feel that anger rising, try taking a few slow, deep breaths and see what happens.
Okay, so deep breathing is step one. What's next?
The second step is to model calm behavior.
Okay.
This means avoiding matching the other person's intensity.
Oh, so if they're raising their voice, you don't raise your voice back.
Exactly. You resist the urge to fight fire with fire.
Right.
Instead, you're trying to douse the flames with composure.
And that can be hard.
Oh, it can be so challenging.
Yeah.
Especially when emotions are running high.
For sure.
But even small changes like speaking in a slower, calmer tone can make a big difference in shifting the energy of the interaction.
It's like sending that signal that you're not going to get pulled into that spiral.
That negative spiral.
Yeah, you're choosing to stay grounded even if the other person is losing their cool.
Right. And this leads us to the third step in Banner Health's process, which is all about validation.
Validation. So does that mean we have to agree with the other person's perspective?
Not necessarily.
Even if we think they're wrong?
Yeah, validation doesn't equal agreement.
Okay.
It's about acknowledging and understanding the other person's feelings and perspective, even if you don't share them.
So it's more about showing that you're listening and trying to see things from their point of view.
Exactly. And this can be so powerful because it communicates respect and empathy.
Right.
Which can often diffuse tension and create a more receptive space for dialogue.
Sometimes just feeling heard and understood can really help someone calm down.
Absolutely.
So we've covered deep breathing, modeling, calm behavior, and validation.
Yes.
What's the final step in this de-escalation process?
The fourth and final step is knowing when to take a break from the conversation.
So if things are getting too heated,
Yes.
it's okay to call a timeout.
Absolutely. Sometimes the best thing you can do is to create some space, to cool down, gather your thoughts.
Yes.
And this is where the Mediate.com article adds another layer of insight.
Okay.
They talk about the importance of understanding your personal anger scale.
Anger scale, what's that?
It's a way of measuring your own emotional intensity on a scale of, say, 1 to 10.
Okay.
With 1 being completely calm
Right.
and 10 being full-blown rage.
Okay.
The idea is to become aware of your own triggers and warning signs so you can step away before you hit a 10.
That's a great strategy.
It's like preemptively de-escalating the situation before it spirals out of control.
Right. And sometimes a break of even just a few minutes can make a world of difference.
It can.
It allows everyone to calm down, gain some perspective, and come back to the conversation with a clearer head. This whole idea of understanding your personal anger scale is really resonating with me.
Yeah.
I'm curious, what does your anger scale look like?
I think I'll save that for part 2 of our deep dive.
Okay.
Because there's actually another fascinating point from Mediate.com I want to share. And it involves using humor as a de-escalation tool.
Humor? Okay, now I'm really intrigued.
Yeah.
We'll be right back after a quick pause to explore how laughter can play a role in navigating heated arguments.
Hey there. Hope you're enjoying the show. Want to sponsor our podcast? We're open to it. We can feature your product in a quick break and include an affiliate link in the description. Reach out to us Instagram at AlexMaya or search for Alex and Maya Podcasts on Instagram. Welcome back to the deep dive. Before the break, we were talking about some pretty practical tips for de-escalating arguments.
Yeah, like taking those deep breaths and understanding our anger scales.
Yes, exactly.
And you were about to tell us about another tip from Mediate.com about using humor to navigate those tense situations.
Right.
Now that sounds a little counterintuitive.
It does.
I mean, can laughter really help when things are getting heated?
Well, it might seem surprising, but there's actually a lot of research that shows how laughter can be an incredibly effective tool for diffusing conflict and shifting the emotional climate of a situation.
Really? Tell me more.
So when we laugh, our brains release endorphins, dopamine, and serotonin, all those feel-good hormones.
Yeah.
And these hormones not only reduce stress and tension, but they also help us to shift our focus away from negative emotions.
So it's like laughter gives us a little emotional reset button.
Yes.
Helps us see things from a more lighthearted perspective.
Exactly. And this shift in perspective can be so powerful.
Yeah.
When we're able to laugh together, even in the midst of a disagreement, it creates a sense of connection. It reminds us that we're not enemies.
Right.
We're human beings who are simply trying to navigate a challenging situation.
It's like finding a little bit of common ground.
Yes.
Even if we haven't yet found a solution to the problem.
Right. And while it's important to be sensitive to the situation and the other person's feelings.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to,
Right.
crack a joke during a serious conversation.
Exactly. But sometimes finding a way to inject a little bit of humor can actually create the space for a more productive and less stressful dialogue.
Okay, I can see that. Now, I'm curious to hear from our listeners. Have you ever used humor to de-escalate a tense situation?
Yeah, tell us about it.
What happened?
What happened?
Share your stories in the comments.
Yes, we'd love to hear real-life examples.
We love hearing those.
Absolutely.
Okay, so speaking of shifting perspectives.
Yes.
I think it's time to introduce that folktale we mentioned earlier.
Oh, yes.
The Narrow Path.
The Narrow Path.
It offers a completely different approach to conflict management. One that focuses on avoiding arguments altogether.
Well, wisdom of avoidance.
The wisdom of avoidance, that sounds intriguing. Can you set the scene for us?
Okay, so imagine a village with a path so narrow that only one person can pass at a time.
Okay.
It's almost inevitable that people will encounter each other on this path.
Right, creating a potential for conflict.
Right, exactly.
Okay, I can see where this is going.
So the story presents 3 different scenarios, each highlighting a different approach to conflict.
Okay.
In the first scenario, 2 stubborn villagers approach the path from opposite ends. Neither one is willing to budge.
Oh, boy.
So they end up in a heated argument,
Yeah.
each one demanding that the other step aside.
I can practically hear the shouting.
Right.
See the frustrated gestures.
And the thing is, they both end up walking away, feeling angry and resentful. Their day completely ruined by this pointless confrontation.
It's a classic lose-lose situation.
It is.
Nobody gets what they want, and they both end up feeling worse than they did before.
Exactly. Now imagine a second scenario.
Okay.
This time, one villager is wise and the other is stubborn.
Okay.
As they approach the path, the stubborn villager demands that the wise one move aside. But instead of arguing, the wise villager simply steps aside and lets the stubborn one pass.
That's a really powerful image.
It is.
Choosing peace over pride.
And what's interesting is that the wise villager doesn't engage in the conflict at all.
Yeah.
They recognize that a little bit of patience and humility can go a long way in preventing unnecessary stress and drama.
Sometimes the most effective way to win an argument is to just not play the game at all.
Right. And for the grand finale, let's imagine a third scenario where both villagers approaching the path are wise.
Okay.
They see each other coming.
Yeah.
Recognize the potential for conflict, but instead of getting stuck in a standoff or even engaging in a polite but potentially awkward negotiation, they each take a small detour, completely avoiding the narrow path altogether.
So they sidestep the conflict before it even arises.
Exactly. They both reach their destinations peacefully without any stress or confrontation.
This folktale really reminds us that conflict isn't always inevitable.
It's not.
Sometimes with a little foresight and a willingness to be flexible,
yes,
we can navigate potential conflicts with grace and wisdom.
Absolutely. And that brings us to a key question for our listeners.
Okay.
Which of these characters do you identify with most often in your own life?
Oh, that's a good one.
Do you find yourself digging in your heels and refusing to budge? Or are you more likely to step aside or even find a detour?
Yeah.
Let us know your thoughts in the comments below.
And as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want to connect this story back to the practical advice we discussed earlier.
Okay.
Even if we can't always avoid conflict altogether.
Right.
Remembering those tools for de-escalation.
Yes.
Like taking deep breaths, modeling calm behavior, and validating the other person's feelings can help us navigate those narrow paths with a bit more grace and ease.
Absolutely. It's about having a toolbox of strategies at our disposal so we can choose the most effective approach for each situation.
For sure.
And in part 3, we'll explore even more tips and takeaways for navigating conflict like a pro. We've covered a lot of ground today, from the subtle signs of a brewing argument to the power of laughter and the wisdom of avoidance.
Yeah, as we've been talking, one thing that keeps coming back to me is the power of proactive conflict management.
Yes.
It's like having a game plan in place before you even step onto the field.
It's so much easier to navigate those challenging conversations when you've already got some tools and strategies at your disposal.
It's like having that fire extinguisher ready before the fire even starts.
Exactly.
So for everyone listening, I want to encourage you to take what you've learned today and start putting it into practice.
Don't just let this information sit in your brain.
Yeah.
Experiment with these techniques. See what works for you, and maybe even share your own tips and experiences in the comments below.
Yeah.
We'd love to hear from you.
We would.
What strategies do you use to stay calm in the heat of the moment?
Yeah.
Have you ever successfully avoided an argument by taking a detour like those wise villagers in the story?
We're all in this together, folks. Let's keep this conversation going and learn from each other's experiences.
Absolutely.
And speaking of learning, we've got another fascinating deep dive coming up next week.
Yes, we do. In episode 9, we'll be exploring the importance of self-love and self-care.
Ooh.
A topic that's so crucial for our overall well-being and our ability to navigate the ups and downs of life.
Right.
Including those inevitable conflicts.
So be sure to subscribe to the deep dive and hit that bell icon so you don't miss out on any of our upcoming episodes.
And in the meantime, keep practicing those conflict resolution skills.
Yeah.
Choose peace over pride whenever possible.
Yeah.
And remember that even in the midst of disagreement, there's always an opportunity for connection and understanding.
That's a great reminder. Thanks for joining me for another insightful deep dive.
It's always a pleasure. Until next time, keep diving deep.